Good afternoon to you. Mark Suttoth, HurricaneTrack here. Tuesday now, the 11th of August, 2025. Boy, oh boy, the tropics getting busy now. We have Tropical Storm Erin. In the eastern Atlantic, a lot of attention going to be focused on this over the next week to 10 days. Understandably so. We also have a busy Pacific. I'm going to start with that. I'll be very quick because I know we all have much interest in the future of Erin. So let's get started. First, in the East Pack here, check this out off the HurricaneTrack interactive map. This is Evo, gone, don't worry about it. This is interesting though. This is Henriette. It was a tropical storm and then it kind of died away, became a storm again, and then a hurricane now well north of Hawaii. But look at this, the overall cone focused generally in the vicinity eventually of the Aleutian Islands. Now that's stretching it a bit because the water is very cold up here, obviously. But you just don't see that very often, so I thought that I would show you that. Well north of Hawaii, so no worries if you're headed out in that direction. Sliding the old interactive map off to the, well, I guess I'm moving it from the west to the east so we can see more of the eastern portions. Here's the Gulf with our system that brought a lot of rainfall to southwest Florida yesterday. We'll focus on this a little bit more in just a moment via satellite animation. These two features up here in the North Atlantic, don't worry about those. Not going to amount to anything, so we will bypass talking about those for now. This, however, is the big story. Tropical Storm Erin. Notice the track of it over the last few days as it got its start. GFS did a good job identifying the vortmax in here that would eventually pivot around the larger envelope of energy that was associated with the big tropical wave that came off. It did, in fact, pivot around to the northwest, and bingo, today, Tropical Storm Erin was born, if you will. Interesting way to put it. Forecast to be a Category 3 at some point, maybe even stronger than that as we go through the next week to 10 days. So let's take a look at things from a satellite perspective. First, in the Gulf down here, surface trough, large area of showers and thunderstorms, disorganized, but whether or not this is classified as a depression or a storm matters little. The overall impacts are still going to be here. This will all move in eventually towards the Florida Panhandle and maybe elsewhere along the central Gulf Coast, but the Hurricane Center giving it 0% probability of turning into a tropical cyclone, just in case you were wondering. These are the two features that we are going to ignore for now, because this is the bigger story. Tropical Storm Erin in the East Atlantic, and even more energy coming off of Africa as the overall pattern is more favorable now, like we thought it would be. Well, here it is. Let's zoom in on our tropical storm, and we can look at a couple of things that are pretty interesting about it. Let's speed up the animation just a little bit off the Weather Nerd site. First of all, it's got some easterly shear, meaning that the winds are blowing a little bit faster from the east than this can really keep up with, so it's dislodging the thunderstorms a little bit from the low-level center. Otherwise, a fairly favorable overall environment. The thermodynamics, big word there, I understand, but the gradual thermodynamic profile of the atmosphere is going to get better for this to develop. Right now it's in marginally warm enough waters, or over those waters anyway, and the atmosphere is marginally conducive with enough humidity because we do have a tropical storm, but the conditions are not perfect. So that's why we're not seeing explosive deepening or strengthening. Again, that upper level shear kind of pulling things apart just a little bit. It's not all aligned, but over the next few days, everything should come together. And this has the makings of being quite a big ACE producer, accumulated cyclone energy, a metric that scientists use to sort of quantify how a season performed. This is going to add a lot of points. Think of it like a basketball player and how many points they add to the overall game. The stat sheet. Erin will be a high scorer. All right. A lot of talk about where this will end up, comparisons to storms in the past. Do you know what this is? It is Hurricane Ike's path. Why do I bring this up? Not because I think it's going to make it all the way across the Atlantic and into the Gulf to the Houston area. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm showing you how troughs and ridges shape our systems over history. And we can clearly see that when Ike had its start, there was a little bit less ridging out here, enough so that it gained a little bit of latitude. Then the ridge built back in, and it lost that latitude. It started moving south of west, and it stayed on that course for quite a while, reaching the periphery of that big high. Now, by the way, this is all very generalized, just to kind of paint the example for you. And it eventually got into the Gulf and made landfall, coming around the backside of that high in the Galveston and Houston areas. We remember that. I certainly do. I was there for it. That was 2008. This is 2017. This is Irma. So overall, with Irma, not quite the same dramatic track, but a similar fate. A little less ridging here, more ridging over here that really gave it that boost for several days, where it was pretty much on a straight line to the west-northwest as the big Atlantic high built in and kept Irma steering west-northwest, becoming a Cat 5 for many days in a row. All those purple dots there, that's Category 5. Then the ridge weakened a little bit, and it reached the western periphery of it. Again, an oversimplification, but that's generally what happened, and it made a landfall in Cuba, across the Keys, and eventually in southwest Florida. But you can clearly see how the subtropical ridge that sits out here does its work, and the way these storms and hurricanes react to that. It's all pressure in the atmosphere, right? This one is really interesting, and I don't have too much of an answer. Almost an anomaly. If you take out the one little hump right here, and do you know what caused that? That little bump to the northwest, and had a lot of people saying, oh, it's going to be a fish storm. This was Florence in 2018, and at that point right there, many, many people, including some big names out there in the business, were writing Florence off. It's going to turn into the Central Atlantic Trough, and out it will go. They were sure of it. And we all know the rest. It became, damage-wise, North Carolina's biggest hurricane ever. Tremendous amount of damage because of the flooding. The inland flooding from Florence was absolutely catastrophic. And if you take that little bump right there out, boy, it was almost a straight line all the way across the Atlantic, honing in on the Cape Fear region. Quite the anomaly. My point in all of this, you just never know, especially, and look at the similarity between all three of these that I'm showing you. They all started pretty far east in the Atlantic. Irma certainly right off the Cape Verde Islands, Cabo Verde Islands, whatever you want to call it. And they all made their way across the Atlantic. Most do not. Clearly. Because if they did, if we had much more activity reaching land masses all through here, nobody would live within 100 miles of the coast. We just couldn't do it. So it is hard to get them all the way across. That's my point as we go forward. Now let's look at what we know regarding Erin. All right, so this is the current satellite. We kind of looked at that. I like this plot that Levi puts out there, Dr. Cowan. It shows you the center of the low, nicely plotted, very clean, just west-northwest of the Cabo Verde Islands. Again, GFS did a great job identifying this early on. Different track models, your hurricane plus globals and so forth, really tightly clustered. You like to see that because it reduces the uncertainty overall. Very tightly clustered, even out to like a week, turning northwest away from the Caribbean down here, which is great news for our friends in the Virgin Islands and elsewhere. This is Bermuda, so we'll have to watch what happens with that. But remember, this is 1 week out at least. A week, 168 hours. It's just too soon to know if this will verify. You could take this whole envelope and just keep shifting it west day by day, or east, got to be fair, so that it could end up much farther to the west. It could be much farther to the east. We don't know that far out. 3 to 5 days is our best, really, and even sometimes that's not good enough when you get down to it. You know, we saw that with Milton and just how a few miles last year, a few miles, 18 to 20 miles, could have made a huge difference, even when Milton was falling apart in terms of what eventually happened in Tampa and St. Petersburg. And even 24 hours out, 18 to 20 miles for where a core could go, that's very difficult to do, much less 168 hours. So there's a long way to go. Most of the guidance today, that's a key word here, Today, most of the guidance is indicating a gradual turn around the periphery of the eastern part of the subtropical ridge, the big high pressure over the Atlantic, and it would turn between Bermuda and Cape Hatteras, likely missing most land masses. Today, that's what we know today from the available guidance. I cannot emphasize that point enough, and I can prove it to you, kind of show you. You might have already seen this, but we'll show it for demonstrative purposes and explain things. Let's use this blue color here to make things pop better. There's our piece of energy down here that is now, Erin, run this out to 1 week. You see what happens. There you go, 168 hours. It starts to do that turn to the northwest right about in there. Once again, that's 168 hours out. Looking at the upper levels, and I like the anomaly chart here because it gives us an idea of the departures. Pretty straight flow to the north. The ridge out here got a little bit of a weakness sitting over in the western Atlantic, so it makes sense. But again, this is a week out. This could be more, and this would be more west. This could be less, and it turns east of Bermuda. Nobody knows. That's absolutely the truth. Nobody knows. None of the computer models. There's not a secret one out there that has the answer. If it did, and whoever had it, they would be the richest person in the world. All right? Seriously. We just don't know. It's too far out. So we'll be watching these patterns as we go through time. Remember, for what it's worth, and I can show you this too, was it yesterday's 12Z? I think it was. Curved Erin east of Bermuda. And today, it is west of Bermuda. Just by a hair. But, you know, that's significant. That's not nothing. Again, bad grammar, but you get the point. Euro, same kind of deal. This is what we call the Euro fast, because it's every day or whatever. Pretty close to what the GFS is showing, but at 168 hours out. A little closer to the islands, but not by much. So very similar. Let's just compare these apples to apples here at 168 hours. Let's do it. There it is. GFS and Euro. Euro is a little slower. GFS a little faster. Otherwise, longitudinally, they are about the same. Again, one more time for everybody to hear. Today, this is what this shows today. What does this show 24 hours from now and 48 hours from now? That is the question with all of this. So we look at things, we assess them today, we have biases. We don't want a hurricane coming our way. I understand all that. But confirmation bias is a real thing. You see what helps to confirm what you want the outcome to be. So you just assume, oh, it's going to be a fish storm and whatever, out in the open Atlantic. But that's what we know today. Will it be the same tomorrow? Well, you got to tune in. Good way to keep you coming back and watching the videos, right? No, seriously, that's how the science works. Now, one thing we can say almost for certain, a great post here from our friend Andrew. Something interesting to note, he says, if the current NHC forecast verifies exactly, Erin should generate around 10 ACE points. ACE is the accumulated cyclone energy, a metric that mostly scientists look at rather than the general public, through the next 5 days. This would put us at about 14 ACE units total, around the seasonal average for this year to date. In other words, we'd get caught up basically to where we should be, because we've been lacking in the hurricane department here for the first part of the season. And this is interesting too, and he's dead right about this. It should be noted that the storm likely wouldn't have reached its peak by that point. And this is going to be on the map for a while, Erin will be, so we're probably going to spike this up pretty high when it's all said and done. Doesn't go through November, but I'm just showing you. Demonstrative purposes only. Erin's going to generate a lot of ACE points, which will put us right where we should be on the seasonal guidance that we have seen from NOAA, from CSU, and others. And it's only early August here, getting to mid-August, but yeah, very interesting stuff as we go forward. All right, drop out just for a second. Want to remind you, now I have 11 of them left. I got another order in this morning. By the way, you know who you are. It is shipping today. Thank you very much. This is the paper tracking map. Look, we got our beautiful interactive. These are great. I mean, one of the best in the business, I would say, from our good friend Will Woodgate over in the UK. But if you want a paper one, look at that. Actual size compared to my big melon there, right? poster size map. You can get one. Click on this link right here. It takes you to the PayPal page. I drew it myself. You've heard me talk about it lots of times. Get one for your own. Put it on your wall and put your melon next to it. Send me a picture of that. A couple people of you. You can tell I get worked up about this. A couple of you have done that, and I appreciate that. It's nice to see that this artwork, this rare, because there are not too many paper maps left anywhere, are still in circulation, and people appreciate them. So if you want to get one of your own, I will put the link to get yours in today's description. All right? All right, let me go so I can get on about my business the rest of the day, and you can do the same. And we'll check in tomorrow, probably in the morning this time, to see what the overnight runs showed. And we'll see, is it more of the same, or do things start to change in an appreciable manner? Well, we'll have to tune in to find out together. Thanks for tuning in today. I am Mark Sudduth. I'll talk to you again tomorrow morning.